coming. My name's Sasha Ismail. I'm a member of the Committee of Ukraine Solidarity Campaign, which is the UK trade union and labour movement campaign in solidarity with Ukraine and its working class, its workers movement. And we organised the protest tonight. Thank you for coming at such short notice in the middle of the summer. Obviously, we're here for a very important reason, and we're gonna hear some speakers about what those reasons are and what we can do to take this fight forward in the very difficult moment we find ourselves in. So we've got a number of speakers, but first of all, we're going to hear from Chris Ford, who's the Secretary of the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign. So please give a welcome to Chris.
To speak, yeah? Thank you everyone for coming. For this short notice in the August period, we considered it was an emergency in light of the developments that have taken place in the Munich of Alaska. Why do we call this demonstration? We called it to reiterate the message that occupation is not peace. We've seen a display, a denigration of diplomacy which has taken place in Alaska, where Donald Trump, a convicted felon, had sat in a meeting with a wanted war criminal, wanted for the abduction of thousands of children from Ukraine. And then today, to add insult to injury, we've been told that Putin will be granted immunity to travel to Switzerland for a further meeting to discuss the fate of Ukraine. Well, our message is clear. The fate of Ukraine should never be decided by Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or anyone else but the Ukrainian people themselves. And the Ukrainian people voted in a referendum for independence in one free and united Ukraine. It is not for Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin to draw up maps which will consign millions of people to Russian occupation, under an occupation which we know has murdered tens of thousands of people, abducted thousands of children, where they're living under a terror regime which is genocidally seeking to destroy the Ukrainian nation entirely. What kind of peace allows that to continue? For year after year we were told by politicians that they would stand by Ukraine until the end. And the end was the restoration of sovereignty, the restoration of independence, and the restoration of a united Ukraine. Today, I heard it stated that they would rearm Ukraine, they would bolster its army, they would rebuild its military. And I asked myself the question, why didn't they do that before? Why didn't they do that before this situation where they have made Ukraine vulnerable? Let's not forget, it was Donald Trump who, before he was president, his party stopped aid to Ukraine, along with the Hungarian far-right leader. Let's not forget, in March, it was Donald Trump who stopped military aid to Ukraine again, and intelligence sharing, weakening warnings for air raids. Hundreds of people are dead because of Donald Trump. Hundreds of soldiers are dead in Kursk because he enabled a Russian counter-offensive. If anyone thinks that you can trust Donald Trump, then you are deluded or you're a liar. And I fear that the politicians or leaders of Europe are taking an entirely dangerous and wrong approach in appeasing Donald Trump. So far, after all these many months of a so-called peace process, we have seen not one single concession from Putin. The only thing Putin will understand is force. If they want to help Ukraine, they could redouble the sanctions so that they're effective. If they want to help Ukraine, they could change the balance on the battlefield so fair and just negotiation can take place. But we, the grassroots of civil society, need to call them out now before the situation grows worse, before they betray Ukraine. They talk of guarantees. Remember, they guaranteed security and independence in the Budapest Agreement. When did they fulfill that guarantee? What use is a guarantee after they've agreed an occupation? What use is a guarantee after millions are consigned and they've made it permanent, the division of someone else's country? And I would remind everyone about peace. Every country that empires have divided, there is still no peace. Trump boasted he wants a Nobel Peace Prize, listing a number of countries where there continues to be conflict because empires divided those countries. From Kashmir to Palestine, there's still conflict. If they divide Ukraine and occupation continues, everyone knows what happened at Minsk. It will not guarantee peace. And that's why we need to raise our voice now. And there is another reason. We all know what this will mean, what Trump and Putin represent. Authoritarianism, an attack on democracy, a rise of fascism globally. If they succeed, they're going to plummet this world into a dog-eat-dog situation where the big powers dominate the others and can wage aggressive war freely. And when we say aggressive war, remember, they signed up at Nuremberg trials that the waging aggressive war was a war crime. No one mentioned justice for the war crimes in Alaska. No one mentioned justice for the war crimes in Washington yesterday. Suddenly, we're expected to have amnesia. But we in the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign, we don't have amnesia. Our friends don't have amnesia. We know what war crimes mean. We know the danger before us, and we're calling out now. Don't betray Ukraine. Occupation is no peace.
Amen. Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker is John Maloney. John is the Assistant General Secretary of PCS. PCS is a public and commercial services union. It's the main trade union in the UK civil service. As I mentioned, Ukraine Solidarity Campaign is a campaign based first and foremost in the UK trade union movement. And we know that the trade union movement, workers' rights, workers' organisations have always first under attack by authoritarianism, whether it's Trump or Putin or any other authoritarian regime around the world. We also know the workers' movement is absolutely essential to building a really democratic movement that can really change society. And PCS has been a firm friend of Ukraine. In 2022, it was the first UK trade union conference after the full-scale invasion to come out in support of Ukraine. It's an affiliate of our campaign, and it's maintained strong solidarity, including strong practical solidarity with Ukraine ever since. So I'm delighted to have John speaking, and I'll hand over to John.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm supporting this campaign because our union, as Sasha said, was one of the first unions to condemn the Russian invasion, called upon the Russian state to withdraw completely, and that still remains our position. Our position is clear. It's only the Ukrainian people who determine peace. It's the Ukrainian people have the right of self-determination. It's not for superpowers like America to decide what the world should look like. My union is opposed to this form of imperialism. My union stands fully supporting behind the Ukrainian trade union movement, behind the people of Ukraine. Now, peace can break out very easily, as was pointed out in a tweet I read today. All it requires is President Putin to ring up and actually say, I am stopping this war and I am withdrawing all my forces to the original borders. He could do that today. But the point is, as we know, he will not do that. He senses victory here, victory facilitated by President Trump. And there is now going to be a reckoning. Either you're on the side of freedom, democracy and the Ukrainian people and trade union movement,
or you're going to be on the side of America and the Russian oligarchs. We have to make a decision in the British trade union movement where we stand. Now, PCS is very clear where it stands. It stands with the trade union movement of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. And what we need to do over the coming weeks is mobilise all the unions who have formal policies for supporting the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian trade union movement, for that their force be felt on the Labour government, so that the Labour government knows where the working class movement in this country stands. It is vitally important that we stand up and show our solidarity with the Ukrainian people. So I'm just going to end on this. As I said, it's only for the Ukrainian people to decide on peace, and if there is to a peace, on what the terms are. It's not for me, it's not for the Americans, it's not for anybody else to say you must accept the dismembering of your country. Because we all know that even if that were happened, that this is just another round in an eternal war. That within a few years, the fear must be that Russia resupplies and starts another war. And it doesn't matter what security guarantee President Trump gives, and we all know what his word is worth. Push comes to shove, he will not defend Ukraine. He will just shrug his shoulders, and if you remember, his position is, if you haven't got any force behind you, then you're a weakling, you go to the wayside. He just sees the world in power values. The powerful get what they want, and the weak get nothing. Well, that's why the trade union movement must show its solidarity. Because we cannot support a dismemberment of Ukraine and then turn around and say we want justice around the rest of the world. Justice is one and indivisible. You're either in favour of self-determination for all nations of the world, or you have a list of favourites. I'm in favour of self-determination for the Palestinian people, but I'm also in favour of the self-determination of the Ukrainian people. One is the same as the other. So I'm glad that everybody's come here today, but we've got a huge amount of work to do. Let's mobilise the trade union movement. Let's show solidarity with Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, and it's worth saying that in every case but one where there has been a debate in the UK trade union, its members and the delegates and conferences have voted overwhelmingly to stand with Ukraine. So the UK trade union movement does stand with Ukraine. As John said, we need to mobilise that support. So we're here today protesting against American imperialism and the American government, as well as Russian imperialism and the Russian government, and the American imperialism's attempt under Trump to force the Ukrainians to capitulate. But we're also protesting in solidarity with our friends and comrades in the United States. And so we're absolutely delighted to have one of them here today, which is Alyssa Hertzinger from Indivisible, which is an American organisation that has been very important in organising the protest movement in the US against Trump and his regime.
Thank you, Sasha. As he said, I am a US citizen and part of Indivisible.London, one of the largest grassroots resistance movements to Trump and Trumpism worldwide, and we support the fight for a free and sovereign Ukraine. The United States has an authoritarian dictator in place who is taking his every cue from Vladimir Putin. The USA should not be browbeating Ukraine to accept occupation. They should be giving sufficient aid to protect Ukrainian civilians, to help drive out the Russians and secure a just peace on Ukraine's terms. Instead, Donald Trump literally rolled out the red carpet for wanted war criminal Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and he did not do the same for Zelensky yesterday in DC. Further proof that the US has pivoted to support Russia over Ukraine, despite saying they want peace. Both Trump and Putin have proved over and over again that they do not keep their promises, and it is naive for any leader to believe anything they say. Ukraine should already be protected by the Budapest Memorandum, so security guarantees are meaningless. Trump and Putin are dictators. They expect everyone to bow to their whims and blame any violence on those who stand up against them. The man behind Project 2025 said that what MAGA is doing now is the second American Revolution, and it will remain bloodless if the left allow it to be so. Netanyahu blames his war and genocide on Palestinians when Israel has been illegally occupying Palestine since 1967. Putin invaded Ukraine, and now he and Trump hold Zelensky responsible for the war and responsible for peace. This emboldens any authoritarian to invade territory they want. And if it becomes a war, they say it's because the invaded people wouldn't let it happen peacefully. These strong men are bullies, and bullies do not stop because you give in. They just come back for more. Allowing your country to be taken over by tyrannical dictators is not peace. Fighting back against invaders is not starting a war. Ukraine did not start this war. Russia started it, and Russia can end it at any time by going home.
Amen.
We saw again in Alaska and in DC yesterday that Trump is nothing more than a drooling puppet for the war criminal Putin. For the UK to continue to have a special relationship with the US now means having a special relationship with Russia. The UK is better than this, and it must be better than this. If the UK is serious about helping Ukraine protect its borders and in turn all of Europe's democracy, it must not only reject any settlement legitimizing Russia's occupation and rally military, financial, and diplomatic support, it must also exert economic pressure on the United States to honor its promise to protect Ukraine from Russian invasion without giving up an inch of its territory. Do not bow down to a wannabe dictator. And as individuals, we can stand up too. We can boycott American companies. Don't travel to the United States. This regime does not care about moral arguments. We have to target the only things they care about: money and power. Trump is coming here in September for an unprecedented second state visit. He should never have been afforded one, let alone a second, but they are rolling out the red carpet for him just like he did for Putin. On September 17th, we will show Trump and the UK government just how unwelcome he and his authoritarian acts are in this country. Donald Trump is in Putin's pocket. To make deals with Trump is to betray Ukraine. Register at stoptrump.org.uk to join us on September 17th in the protest against Trump and Trumpism and for a free and sovereign Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!
Слава!